And I feel terrible as a leader. I still remember the moment he joined the Walk for Peace. The day he came, he looked straight to my eyes. And I still remember he asked me, "Where's my bags?" Because each monk supposed to have 2 bags on our shoulders. And I say, "It's in the RV. It's in the RV. But we will prepare for you 2 bags because you cannot walk alone. You cannot walk without the bags." And so on the first day, we was gonna let him walk without the bags. But then we decided not to let him free. Therefore, we prepared 2 bags for him to walk with us on that day after lunch. Day after day, when walk, I saw him because as a leader, I look around, I skim around, and I check on each and every person in my team. Most of the time, I saw him when we take a break. He's always closed his eyes to cultivate on his breathing. And so day after day like that, we walk and walk and walk, and he got a lot of blisters, and he walked very slow because of blisterings. At that moment, he told me, "Bhante Panyakara, please let me walk slow behind because I'm hurting. It's painful." I say, "It's okay, just take your time. Even though you got left behind, but it's okay, just take your time." And then we continue the walk like that day after day. We share the heat, the rain, the cold. To one day, that day was tired and exhausted. I remember that road is terrible road. A lot of gravels, a lot of rocks. I walk barefoot. It is very painful. And so I just, in my mind, said, when is it gonna end today? I need to rest my feet. And then we almost got to the night locations, and then we turned into one of the gas stations to take a break. And that is when our lay devotees came with ice cream to serve us. And we were so happy to have some ice cream when we are exhausted. And we had some ice cream, and then we start to continue the walk. Before the walk, I asked Luang Por Kamvan, and I asked Luang Por Dongphanit, Ajahn Dongphanit, can you stand up for everyone to see? He is the Vice President of Laos Sangha in the United States. And he is the one who ran for peace after me. And I asked him and I consult the team, shall we walk on the opposite directions or on the same direction of the traffic? And Luang Por and him and everyone say, you are the leader. You make the decision, we follow. And I was like, okay, so what if I make a wrong decision? And then he asked me, is there a big shoulder to walk on the same direction? I say, probably yes. And we walk out and look around, and I saw a wide shoulder. So we decided to walk on that. And that is the first day ever we got donated with the reflection vest by the commissioners. He is the one who put on my vest. I still remember. I was struggled to put it on, and he put it on for me. And then we walk, and I feel uneasy. When I walk in front, I feel so uneasy. Because during that day, at noontime, there was an accident already that almost hit us when we walk. And I thought that was it. That's it. No more. But luckily, we didn't get hit. It got hit and the car swing to outside, but then we already passed that, just that much. So I thought it's finished for today because I have that feeling for the whole day. I didn't know that just was just the beginning. And then we walk, and I feel uneasy, and I stop, and I hear the loud noise, boom. I rush to come back, and I just see everything just scattered around. Seeing him lying on the floor, on the ground, while the traffic still like 70, 80 miles rushing towards us with the very low flashlight. We try to stop the traffic, and then accident again right at that location when they rushed, and then the car in front stopped, the car behind hit again. I came to him and I hold his head. I say, "Are you okay?" He said, "Yes, I'm okay." I told him, "Cultivate on your breathing." He said, "I am doing it right now." No crying, no screaming, no nothing. Calmly responded to my questions. I tried to handle everything. Got him to the hospital by the helicopter. We stopped for 2 days in Dayton because I want him to be well taken care of. All of our team was uneasy at that moment. Those 2 nights was uneasy for us. And I feel terrible as a leader. I feel like I haven't done everything to protect my team. So during that night, after everybody settled around 12 something, I went to the field in the dark and I cried myself. Because I feel like because of me, because of this journey, because of my vow, now my brother have to suffer like this. What if he lost his leg, cannot shave? That feeling for those 2 days and 2 nights was uneasy. And I continue trying to do the breathing. Finally, after talking with him, we continue the walk. And so I called him and he said, "Pandey, I trust you from the day that I see you at the Walk for Peace again, that I already gave you my life because I trust you always. I want to offer my whole life to you for the Dhammacharya project that you had made a vow to build because I know the benefits of it. Therefore, I'm happy to offer my life to you. You do whatever you want as long as you can achieve your goal. And I offer my legs to the Walk for Peace. So please continue, lead the team to Washington, D.C. Don't stop, carry me with you. And I shall see you all in Washington, D.C. I said, I will continue the journey. I will not give up. Our team already, we are not giving up because of the Buddha, Sasana, because of the Walk for Peace, because of all the people who are suffering, and because of you. We will continue this walk and we will carry on. And even if you cannot make yourself to Washington, D.C., I will come and pick you up and take you to Washington, D.C. on the last day. That was our chit-chat. And finally, when I met him again at his temple without his leg, that day was also a very emotional moment when we met again. And then finally, We met again in Washington, D.C., as we already promised to each other, to the whole team. So here today, Ajahn Mahadam. And when I asked the topic to share, he said, pain meditation. This is a new topic based on his experience of pain, because he been living with pain for that day until now, still in pain, right?
Yes.
Still in pain. It's not yet finished. So he will share with you all how to meditate with pain. This is the topic that I always share, that if we cannot prepare ourselves, we cannot overcome all these difficulties, what about our last days? How are we going to handle it? So let he share with all of us how to handle it, how to practice it. And of course, most venerable Bu Hieng, the most respected monk from Vietnam, will continue to translate for us. And this is junior, this is senior. Let's give both of them an applause.
When I walk, it's very difficult for me, because my first time, Ajahn Panya, he walked a lot, many thousands of kilometers, and the other monks walk a lot. But for me, it's the first time for me. But I want to join, I want to walk with them, but it's very pain, and he walk really fast. And first time is okay for me, because I walk the first day, I walk just the afternoon to the evening. It's okay for me. It's nothing. But the second day is a very pain for me. And 3 people told me to, okay, Pante, if you cannot walk, you can go to the car, they say. Just 2 people. And I think if have one person told me I want to go to the car, but nothing, no one told me to go to the car. I just walk, man. I think is I want to train myself and my body. And that time I very mindful to focus on my pain. And when we go to the camp, I saw the Nan Nanikai, she live stream. I walk in the last time. when she saw me walk in front in the last one, I heard his yeah, long strong breathing. Oh, I think about myself is I am very weak, but it's a very helpful to focusing on our on my pain. It's very, I don't think about anything, because it's very pain. I focusing on the pain, and every step we walk very pain. It's a very helpful to practice pain meditation. Normally, pain meditation is not called pain meditation. It's named feeling meditation. If you practice anapanasati or mindfulness breathing meditation, you should by 16 step you will know about the pain meditation or feeling meditation. Yeah. But for me, when I practice the pain meditation, I'm not practice from the rapture or from the sukha, we call breathe, but I focusing on my pain. That's how do I know this practice for my pain? When I was Samanela in Thailand, I left my classroom with my friend. Don't tell the teacher left to join the retreat because I really exciting. I want to join the retreat. But if I told the teacher, he don't allow to go to join the retreat. I just don't tell him and go with my friend. And when I practice 9 days, I told myself, okay, you come here. Don't tell they didn't tell the teacher. You have to practice more than other people. That day I decide to no sleep that night. I walking meditation a lot and very painful. And when I sitting meditation, I don't sit on the soft seat because it's easy to sleep, make me sleepy. And I walk on the hard floor. And when I sit, I remember the teacher told me about when you have pain, you can focus on your pain. When we sit, we have a lot of point to pain, but just choose the one where is stronger, more pain in your point. Like you pain in knee or your ankle, your back, your thigh. Yeah. You can choose the one where is the strongest and focus like a penny coin. Focusing done without adjustment. Without judgment. Just looking, just aware. What is the pain? Just looking for pain. When I practice like that, it's very, very, very pain. But in the end, I saw the pain like something movement like this. And when I realize is wow, that is pain. It's make me make my body open the soda can. It's a very, very clean, very scan my body. It's like my hair, my stand up, every hair. Yeah, it's that moment. I remember that moment to everywhere when I practice mindfulness, when I got hurt, when I pain, when I practice meditation. It's very helpful. I want to share why. Because when I got hit by a car and when I pain when I walk, it's very helpful, especially when I got hit by a car. That moment I think about myself. I think I die already. And when I know I die already, I will be very proud of myself. Okay, now I die with mindfulness. I think I gonna go to the hell. I gonna go to the heaven. I will go to the heaven. That moment I very proud. But everything I'm not die. Everything clear, and I heard the sound. I saw Ajahn Panyakara and Long Pa Net come to my. That moment I think I let go everything. And I very, very strong mindful to focusing on my breathing in and breathing out and focusing on my pain. Because I know in the last time of the life, it's nothing important. Even you have the million of dollar, but it cannot help you. I think it's only one can help me, only my mindfulness. I really lucky because when we walk every day, we practice very, very strong my mindfulness. Yeah. But when I got his, that's why I really, very strong mindful. And But when you focus on the pain, is pain not go down, and not go up, but you just aware, be aware to your pain. Just be aware. What point is the very strong? Just looking for and think about pain. Pain is very very strong. I cannot explain to you. It's a very strong pain. What I got. I just asked for the pain medicine from the doctor. Just please give me pain medicine. They say I cannot give you the pain medicine because you got enough. Your weight, your height is not enough for pain medicine. My body is shaking. They ask me, are you cold? I'm not cold. I pain, but I'm shaking. Yeah, but I feel very warm my heart and very happy when I got to the hospital. And that time, first time I raised the helicopter, before I never, yeah, the helicopter took me to the hospital, and when I lay down on the helicopter, this is my first time. I asked, yeah, when I stay in the hospital in the emergency room, the Nanika and the Trang, she stay with me. That time, I think they give me the maybe sleeping medication. I'm not sure, but I feel like I feel half awake and half dream, but it's very pain. But I feel the Nanika and Trent stay with me is very helpful for me because he say, okay, Fante, he say, okay, Fante, it's very hurt. You be you strong. You okay. I feel like I stay with my mom. yeah, I very thankful for Nanika and Trent. Yeah, and when in the hospital, when I done cut my leg, is my wound is the machine is we call wound vac, right? Wound vac to vacuum the my breast. It doesn't work. Three machine. Yeah, is my breast is still in my wound until the 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's a very hurt, very pain. But when the doctor come, they don't give me the pain medication because I have the high blood pressure. They just fix my wound by the cut the plastic wrap and take off the skin. I feel like they take off the chicken skin. I really pain and I remember the venerable teacher told me about that time very good time for you to practice. That time you lay down in the hospital bed or before you die, very painful. That time is very good time for practice mindfulness. I only nothing help me, only practice mindfulness. I pain. I almost pass out. And in the day when we got when I got in the emergency room, that time I focusing on my breathing in and breathing out, and I almost stopped breathing 2 times. the Nananika and Trang just wake me up. Pante, wake up. That time I think, why? Now I meditate. I just breathing in and breathing out, but I don't know is my machine is a signal is when oxygen is low, 2 times they wake me up. Yeah. That is very important to practice my mindfulness about pain meditation. If you don't practice now, the life you have the everything is now is you strong, you have time to practice. If you want to practice when you almost die, I think you cannot. Why? I can practice like that because I practiced many times before. For example, if we try to swim, right? We have to try to swim when we stay in the no deep water, right? If we try to swim, and when we on the boat, when the boat sink, we can swim, right? But you cannot try to swim when the boat sink without training. When you stay in the beside the river, it's the same. You have to practice every day what you get hurt in your body every time. Practice every day. Just knowing, focusing on your pain. Many people have a lot of pain in the body, but just choose the one point to focus, very deep focus. Just don't think about, okay, I want to stop the pain. Okay, I want to pain be like this, be like that. Don't think like that. Just focusing, just knowing is a pain happen now. Is what is exact pain. You call pain meditation. Yes. Wow. Should we continue? Okay, I think
You share your experience to help them.
yes. Experience. I think I'm finished. I don't know how to and I want to share aboutหลวงพ่อรัตนคุณา isอาจารย์ปัญญาการะ is I saw he is the best person, but หลวงพ่อรัตนคุณา is the best of the best, Why? Because I never seen the teacher in this world who train his student to be the best. He support อาจารย์ปัญญาการะ every way, everything he support. And when he spend time with me in the hospital, because the หลวงพ่อรัตนคุณา he don't want me to cut my leg, the doctor come to told me the truth is I cannot fix your leg, but you have to cut off, or you have to wait for the bring the bone somewhere of your body to connect, and you have to wait for maybe 2 years, 1 year or 2 years. It's a take long time. For myself, I think I want to cut. Because I want to meet the monk before in the Washington D.C. I think like that. But Long Po say he want to save my food. He spend time with me. He sleep in the hospital with me, and he taught me many things. I asked him, Long Po, how you train Ajahn Panyakala to be like him, to be like a mindset with him. He said, I told him this. I told him, I don't care what your education. I don't care what you can speak Dhamma talk really good. But I just care about you become a good monk. If you become a good monk, he said like that. It's a very Long Po Ratanakuna, he is a very smart, very genius to talk, to teach other people. When we walk I walk with, I usually talk with Jesse, Jesse, yeah, the lay people who walk with us. The Long Po come to Jesse and told Jesse, very good teaching when the Jesse walk. He told, okay, Jesse, walk, he said, feet, walking, body, moving, and the mind, knowing. Wow, I say, wow, how Long Po teach like this? It's very deep and very genius to teach like that. And he is a very kind, very be kind and really. I feel when I stay with him, I feel like I stay with the father. He's a very gentle Long Po Ratanakona, and he is the best of the best. Yeah, I have to say like that. Yeah. I think my Dhamma talk is gonna end now.
Life has a profound, sometimes brutal way of reminding us that pain is an inevitable companion on our human journey. As we navigate the middle chapters of our lives, this realization often settles in deeply. We begin to understand that no one escapes the natural progression of aging, the sudden onset of illness, or the unforeseen tragedies that can alter our reality in a single heartbeat. We spend so much of our youth trying to outrun suffering, building fortresses of security, only to discover that true resilience does not come from avoiding pain, but from changing how we respond to it. This truth was starkly illuminated during a remarkable journey known as the Walk for Peace, a grueling, thousands of miles pilgrimage on foot across the United States. Culminating in Washington, D.C., it was meant to be a physical manifestation of harmony and spiritual dedication, but it quickly became a profound crucible that tested the very limits of human endurance and the transformative power of the mind. At the heart of this journey was a story not just of unimaginable physical trauma, but of a spiritual triumph that offers a blueprint for anyone facing their own dark nights of the soul. The journey truly began to reveal its profound nature on the day a young, unassuming monk joined the walking group. The leader of the pilgrimage still vividly remembers the piercing clarity in the young monk's eyes as he arrived, immediately asking for his 2 heavy backpacks. Protocol dictated that each monk should carry his own burden, but given the grueling miles ahead, the leader had planned to grant the newcomer a brief reprieve, leaving his bags in the support RV. The young monk, however, refused the comfort. He insisted on bearing his own weight, stepping onto the unforgiving pavement fully laden. As the days bled into one another, the physical toll became excruciatingly apparent. The monks shared the brutal heat of the sun, the biting cold, and the relentless rain. The young monk's feet erupted in severe blisters, forcing him to a painful, agonizing limp. Yet, when offered a chance to rest in the vehicle, he politely declined. Instead, he asked the leader for permission to simply walk at the back of the line, taking his time, refusing to abandon the path despite the searing agony. This was not a display of macho endurance or blind, pointless suffering. In the Buddhist tradition, this is the practice of khanti, or patient endurance, a deliberate, conscious acceptance of present-moment reality. He was using the friction of the road to polish his mind, utilizing the physical distress as the very whetstone upon which to sharpen his spiritual resolve. But no amount of mental preparation could have anticipated the sheer chaos that awaited them on a treacherous stretch of gravel road. Exhausted, walking barefoot over jagged rocks, the group had just paused for a brief respite at a gas station, their spirits momentarily lifted by the kindness of strangers offering ice cream. Shortly after they resumed their march, clad in reflective safety vests and walking against the roaring traffic, the unthinkable happened. A vehicle traveling at highway speeds suddenly lost control. The deafening sound of the impact shattered the afternoon air. The leader, walking ahead, spun around with a sinking heart, rushing back to find a scene of absolute devastation. The young monk lay on the ground, critically injured, amid the chaotic rush of 80-mile-per-hour traffic. As the leader cradled his younger brother's head, consumed by a suffocating wave of guilt and the agonizing fear of failing to protect his team, he braced himself for screams of terror. Instead, he found an eerie, magnificent silence. When asked if he was okay, the young monk simply replied, "Yes. I am cultivating my breathing right now." There were no tears, no panic, no frantic cries to the heavens. In that moment of catastrophic physical trauma, the young monk was embodying the ancient teaching of the second arrow. The Buddha taught that in life, we will all be struck by the first arrow, unavoidable physical pain or circumstance. But the second arrow is our mental reaction to it, the anger, the terror, the despair. Through the sheer force of his mindfulness, the young monk had stopped the second arrow mid-flight. This extraordinary mental fortitude became even more apparent in the agonizing days that followed. Airlifted to a hospital in Dayton, hovering between life and death, the young monk made a phone call to his devastated leader, who had spent the night weeping alone in a dark field, tormented by the thought that his spiritual vow had cost a brother his leg. But the young monk's voice through the receiver carried no resentment, only a breathtaking offering of grace. He reaffirmed his absolute trust in the leader and the mission. He explained that from the moment he joined the walk, he had mentally offered his entire life to the cause of peace and the building of the Dhamma Sitya. "I offer my legs to walk for peace," he said, urging the leader not to stop, not to despair, but to carry the spirit of the team all the way to Washington, D.C. This vow revealed a profound spiritual mechanism. When a person entirely surrenders their ego and personal attachments to a higher, selfless purpose, the boundaries of personal suffering dissolve. His faith and his vow became a protective armor that transcended the fragility of flesh and bone. How does a human being achieve such monumental control while their body is literally being torn apart? The answer lies in a highly specific, intense form of practice known as Vedananupassana, or the contemplation of feelings, often referred to as pain meditation. The young monk had not stumbled into this peaceful state by accident, he had trained for it rigorously. Years prior, as a novice in Thailand, he had sneaked away from his regular classes to attend an intensive 9-day meditation retreat. There, he made a radical decision to forego sleep, walking and sitting on hard floors to intentionally summon physical pain. His teacher had instructed him not to seek the blissful, rapturous states of meditation, but to turn his mind directly toward the suffering. The technique is deceptively simple but incredibly arduous. When sitting, the body will naturally hurt in multiple places. The practitioner is taught to choose the single point of greatest agony, perhaps the knee or the ankle, and focus the mind entirely on that spot, shrinking the awareness down to the size of a penny. The absolute rule is to observe without moving, without adjusting posture, and critically, without wishing for the pain to end. You do not try to suppress the sensation, you merely observe its true nature. When the young monk did this, he discovered that at the deepest level of concentration, the pain was not a solid, unbearable block. Instead, it broke apart, vibrating and shifting like the fizz of an opening soda can, leaving him with a sense of hyper-awareness and profound clarity. It was this precise, grueling training that saved his mind in the intensive care unit. When the wound vacuum machines failed to remove the infection from his amputated leg, the doctors had to manually strip away the dead tissue. Because of his dangerously high blood pressure, they could not administer powerful painkillers. As his body shook violently from the trauma, and the pain threatened to rip his consciousness apart, he remembered his teacher's words, the moment of extreme pain, or the moment right before death, is the ultimate testing ground for your practice. When his oxygen levels plummeted and the monitors blared, signaling that he was slipping away, he did not panic. He felt a deep, warming pride, thinking that if he were to die right then, he would pass from this world in a state of total, unbroken mindfulness. He focused intensely on his in-breath and out-breath, diving straight into the epicenter of his agony. He realized that in the final moments of existence, all the wealth, status, and worldly comforts we accumulate mean absolutely nothing. The only thing that can save you from sheer terror is the trained capacity of your own mind. This brings us to a crucial, unyielding truth about our own lives. You cannot wait until the boat is sinking to learn how to swim. We must practice in the shallow waters of our daily annoyances and minor aches if we are to survive the deep, violent storms of life. Every headache, every moment of physical fatigue, every emotional heartbreak is an opportunity to practice this mindfulness. We are often so quick to medicate, to distract, or to complain when discomfort arises. But if we can learn to sit with our minor pains, observing them without judgment or the desperate need for them to cease, we build an inner resilience that is indestructible. We begin to see that while pain is a guaranteed part of our story, suffering is a narrative we write ourselves. This journey of transformation is rarely walked entirely alone, and the young monk was sustained by the profound compassion of his elders. His master, Luang Por Ratanakuno, slept on a cot in the hospital room, fiercely advocating for his student's well-being and enveloping him in a fatherly love that rivaled his strict spiritual demands. The master's core teaching was brilliantly simple: feet walking, body moving, mind knowing. It does not matter how articulate you are, how much wealth you possess, or how many philosophical books you have read. What matters is the quality of your presence in this exact moment. When the walking team finally reached Washington, D.C., their eventual reunion with the young monk was a testament to this truth. He stood before them without his leg, yet he was vastly more whole than most people walking on two. His physical body had been diminished, but his spirit had expanded to become a living embodiment of peace. His story stands as a profound invitation to all of us, to stop running from our pain, to turn inward, and to discover the quiet, unshakable sanctuary that exists within the center of our own breath.